The frozen ice age wind was unforgiving. A lone Neanderthal crouched in the snow, perfectly built for the bitter cold, yet his kind was quietly dying. We love a violent historical war story. We imagine early humans marching relentlessly, brutally slaughtering these ancient creatures in a global prehistoric conquest. But the fossil record tells another truth entirely. Mankind did not wipe them out with weapons. Instead, humanity simply outsurvived them, leaving these ancient inhabitants to slowly fade into the earth. 300,000 years ago, the planet was home to a diverse array of prehistoric beings. At least 9 distinct ancient groups existed. Today, humanity stands completely alone. Why? Look closely at the famous European Neanderthals. They were highly capable and incredibly intelligent. They created intricate cave art, mastered fire, and fashioned complex tools. But their social networks were extremely fragile. They lived in tiny, highly isolated groups, often numbering no more than 24 individuals. Mankind, meanwhile, was blessed with the ability to build massive, interconnected social webs. When extreme climate shocks hit the continent, humans could rely on distant tribes for trade and vital support. The isolated Neanderthals had nobody to call. Furthermore, Neanderthals were heavily muscled, pure carnivores. Their robust bodies required up to 5,000 calories every single day just to survive. In times of severe environmental food scarcity, one dead mammoth could feed a highly efficient, leaner human group far longer than it could feed a single Neanderthal family. Humanity inadvertently placed a resource strain on them simply by being better at existing on fewer calories. Then came the relentless demographic numbers game. Endless waves of humans expanded across Eurasia. Modern humans did not conquer the Neanderthals on bloody battlefields. They overwhelmed them with massive, compounding population numbers. The sheer volume of humanity pushed the distinct lineage of Neanderthals into the deep margins of the continent until they simply vanished from the face of the earth. A very similar demographic story unfolded in the East. The Denisovans were a mysterious ancient lineage roaming across the vast expanse of Asia. We possess almost zero fossilized skeletons for them. We know them mostly from a few tiny bone fragments, a lingering biological ghost. They thrived in extreme environments, from frozen Siberian caves to the breathtaking high altitudes of the Tibetan Plateau. When humanity expanded right into their eastern territories, we did not fight them to a violent extinction. Instead, the Denisovans could not compete with mankind's rapid growth and adaptability. Their kind became a quiet footnote of the prehistoric past, leaving humanity to move forward alone. But not every ancient creature was outcompeted by numbers. Some were hopelessly trapped by their rapidly changing environments. Look at Homo erectus, arguably a masterpiece of prehistoric survival hardware. They were the very first of these ancient beings to control fire and expand across continents. But their final desperate stand took place in Java, Indonesia. Around 108,000 years ago, the global climate shifted in massive, unstoppable ways. Their familiar open woodlands rapidly transformed into dense, wet, tropical rainforests. Homo erectus could not adapt to this. They could not pivot their ancient hunting strategies to successfully navigate a closed jungle canopy. Their biological limitations finally caught up to them, leaving them to vanish entirely into the prehistoric mud. Island ecosystems are incredibly fragile biological traps. On the isolated Indonesian island of Flores, an incredibly bizarre biological phenomenon played out. Homo floresiensis stood barely 3 feet tall, possessing a brain the size of a chimpanzee. We literally call them the hobbit species. They survived by hunting miniature pygmy elephants on their pristine sandy beaches. Shrinking down is a flawless biological island strategy. A smaller body requires far fewer calories to maintain, but this brilliant design works only until the local climate suddenly turns hostile. Around 50,000 years ago, Flores experienced a devastating, severe drought. The seasonal monsoons completely stopped falling from the sky. The crucial watering holes dried to dust. The pygmy elephants died of extreme thirst, and the hobbit species starved into absolute extinction. A similar fate likely met Homo luzonensis, another miniature species living isolated in the Philippines, perfectly adapted to climbing trees but entirely vulnerable to sudden ecological shifts. And then there was the bizarre Homo naledi, Living deep inside the dark, claustrophobic limestone cave systems of South Africa, Homo naledi had tiny brains but highly developed hands paired with heavily curved fingers perfectly adapted for climbing. They were a strange anatomical mosaic, a highly specialized creature, but a creature cannot successfully rely on a rigid survival model in a rapidly changing world. Without a large brain to develop advanced hunting tactics and isolated in their specific underground niches, they eventually hit an inevitable biological dead end as humanity expanded its territory. So why is mankind the last one standing? Why did humanity inherit the ultimate monopoly on planet Earth? Because by divine design, mankind is endlessly, creatively, and uniquely adaptable. We trade, we communicate, and we connect. When the harsh Ice Age winters arrived, we leaned entirely on our sprawling social networks. While these other ancient creatures froze in complete isolation, mankind shared vital resources and technological innovations across massive distances. We did not just outsmart the ancient world, we outadapted every other creature on the planet. We did not rely on raw physical strength or sheer speed. Instead, we built communities that functioned as large collective brains. We adapted to every changing climate, and we watched the rigid biological specialists slowly fade into the earth, leaving humanity as the undisputed inheritors of the globe.